All right, let's go to Emily in Boise. What's up, Emily?
Hi, how are you?
I'm so good. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Excellent. What's up?
All right. So I guess a little backstory. I found out I was pregnant last year at the end of July.
Okay.
And it was almost like the day I found out I was pregnant, a light switch went off in my brain. And I became like so scared of everything. I think coming out of the pandemic, they're like, don't trust anything, don't touch anything, don't do anything, you're going to get sick. And then pregnancy, they're like, don't eat anything, don't do anything, because not only will you get sick, your baby will get sick.
Right.
So then I had really intense like OCD symptoms kind of develop stronger and stronger throughout my pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I gave birth and everything was okay for a little bit. And like, I'm not as scared about like bacteria and getting sick, but I still have like OCD tendencies. So scared he's going to get like lead poisoning or anything like that. So anyway, so I have like these compulsions and behaviors that I do to like prevent it. And I try to challenge them and remind myself like, your logical brain knows that your baby likely won't get lead poisoning. Mm-hmm. But if I don't wash my hands before I feed him, or if I don't do this or this, then he will. So my question is, how do I determine the difference between like OCD thoughts and anxiety versus like my actual like mother's intuition?
Ooh, that's a good question. Can I ask you a few questions back first?
Yeah.
Okay. Please. Rarely, and I mean super rare, is like you talked about the light switch. Does that happen outside of any sort of historical context? So when was the first time you experienced anxiety or intense anxiety or some sort of repetitive OCD-ish symptoms? And I'm talking about like as a kid, as a 14-year-old. Has this been your whole life?
It's my whole life.
Okay.
Yeah, right. I have memories of even as like a little kid being scared.
Okay. Where did those come from?
Where did what come from?
Where did the idea that I can make a path of safety for myself moving through the world by controlling everything? I have to control everything so that I can be okay. When did that story pop into your head? Or who gave you that story?
I don't know. I know. So another little history thing is I had an eating disorder for a long time and was in and out of treatment. And so I don't struggle with that at all anymore. Like it's almost like a complete past self. Mm-hmm. But when I've talked about it with the new OCD with like my family, they're like, it's almost like you traded one for the other. One form of control.
I would say the same thing. It's still the underlying, I don't want to use the word pathology because I don't know you in that context, but the underlying challenge is I can white knuckle, I can grab the steering wheel so tight that it can never turn no matter the terrain I'm driving over. And we all know that's not true or real. So most of us let go. Some of us grab on even tighter, right? And we end up with elbow issues and shoulder issues. And then we go to the doctor and say, hey, my shoulder hurts. And they give us some sort of injection, some cortisone, or they give us shoulder surgery. And really the problem is we're hanging onto that wheel too tight, right? So backing all the way out, at some point, either that was the way you stayed safe as a kid because you grew up in a house of chaos, or you had people that were right next to you, but they were involved in they were busy doing other things. And so you were trying to figure out how what was wrong with you. And you took control of that relationship that shouldn't have been yours to take control of, or you're in an abusive situation as a kid. We can unwind it for a long way. Even something as simple. So my dad, one of the things he used to tell me was, hey, every decision, every choice you make in life, you're throwing a giant rock into a lake. And you never know where the rings of that lake, of that rock hitting the water, where they're going to wash up on shore, even if it's across the lake. And you're responsible for where those rings wind up. So be careful about every rock you throw. And that was great wisdom. And I did not know how to compute that. So I got paralyzed by every decision because I would be like, well, I got to play 70 different scenarios out here, right? And I'd end up doing nothing. And so that's one of those, even my dad with great intention, right? He was giving me a gift. Also, it wasn't a benign gift, right? So let's fast forward all the way till now.
Okay.
Intuition is most often a set of, or is our body remembering something? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So either your body's remembering that you were out of control once, or it was remembering a time that you read or saw something. So I don't want you to overthink intuition. Does that make sense? I don't want you to romanticize intuition.
Yeah, I think the fear is like, what, like, hypothetically, and I logically know he likely won't get lead poisoning, but he does get lead poisoning, and it's traced back to something that I did. And then it's like, I should have known better. I thought about it, and I chose not to because I was challenging an OCD thought, but actually that thought was not OCD. It was real.
There's not a difference. Take diagnostics off the table. They're really confusing. They're muddying up your next step.
Okay.
I wouldn't think like, is this an anxious thought, or is this an OCD thought, or is this a real thought? I wouldn't think like that at all. Your thoughts are your thoughts are your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so stop trying to pull them apart and splice them and dice them. Just simply sit for a moment and say, if I don't wash my hands, is my kid going to get lead poisoning? No. And your body will feel it, and then you can say, hey, thank you for taking care of me. Thank you for sounding all the alarms. I'm a good mom and I got this. And what you're doing is you are letting go of the wheel instead of tightening your grip on it. Letting go doesn't mean you make bad choices or ding-dong choices, or you go rub your hands in like, cow manure and then go feed. Like, that's not what you're doing here. But you're also recognizing we might get hit by a meteorite. And I'm not going to spend my days wondering what happens after a meteorite. I'll just deal with that when it happens. You know what I'm saying?
Right, definitely.
So the chance of, this statistically, the chance of your kid getting lead poisoning is very, very, very low. Unless he's eating paint off of an old, swing set somewhere.
We live in new construction.
Right. So we know that those alarms are not coming from that fact.
Right.
The alarm is probably ringing off the hook for one of two reasons. Number one, you're a mom who just recognized for the first time, I made peace with an eating disorder. I made peace with my body. I've made peace with my marriage. I've made peace with relationships. Oh, and then a huge variable just got dropped into my world that I simply can't control. And I've heard it said, I'm watching my heartbeat outside of my body in this little boy. And I can't control any of the things that happen moving forward. Somebody's going to break his heart. Somebody's going to be mean to him. He's going to get in a car and drive across the country one day all by himself. He's going to get fired one day. Those things are going to happen. Someone he loves is going to get sick. Those things are going to happen, and I can't control any of it. And one of two things we can move forward is we can double down and say, I'm going to control it. Our body's going to scream at us, control, control. Or I can make peace with, I'm going to do the best I can with what I got. And I'm going to make peace in that gap. And that's true healing. Does that make sense? So that's number one. Here's another number two that could be the case. It's not uncommon that somebody who had childhood traumas, when they have a kid, their body remembers that. And let's say somebody was sexually abused when they're 7, it's very common that somebody starts getting really anxious at 6 when their kids are 6.5. Super anxious, and get really hypervigilant, and they don't know, they feel like they're going crazy, and it's simply their body remembering, hey, this isn't safe. And so that could be the case too for you.
Yeah, I think it's more the first one because my son's the 25th grandchild on my parents' side, and
wow.
So I was like, I know what love is like. I know what love is like because I have all these nieces and nephews, and I had no idea.
Yes.
Like, it was so soul altering.
All right, so I'm going to give you the demon of anxiety. You ready? And I don't mean that like in some weird, I don't know, like horned pitchfork kind of way. But I mean, this is why anxiety is the worst. The more you give into it, the stronger it reinforces itself. Because your brain says, hey, if we need to wash our hands again, and that will make us feel a little bit safer for half of a second, right? So I wash my hands again, and our body goes, oh, got that little bit of whoosh. It feels good. And then the next time it's, let's wash them 3 times. Let's wash them 4 times. And if you don't wash them 4
Right.
times, it's like, whoa, 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 right? So it just keeps moving itself. The only way through it is to turn and face it and walk directly in the middle of it.
Right. Sometimes I do this thing where I'm like, I'm just going to pretend like I don't have OCD
Nope,
anymore.
don't do that.
I
Don't do that.
spend like the morning.
Don't do
Okay.
that. Walk right in the middle of it. Know that I struggle with anxiety. And by the way, anxiety, OCD, I think they are exactly. I think they're on the same. I think they're 2 sides of the same coin.
Right.
I actually have started thinking. I've always understood OCD to be a derivative of anxiety. I'm wondering if it works the other way right now. Here's the deal: it doesn't matter. It's literally academic gymnastics for me at this point. But I'm wondering if the neural loops that OCD sits on is what spins out anxiety. At the end of the day, who cares? When you start to need to wash your hands for the 3rd time or the 2nd time, stop and intentionally look at your hands and say they're clean. And I'm going to lean into that discomfort. And then I'm going to write it down. Did not wash my hands again. I feel uncomfortable, and I'm intentionally feeling this discomfort. And I'm going to go about it. I'm going to go 6 minutes without washing my hands again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm gonna do these things and lean into it. Here's the one thing I want to caution you against. Okay, your child will pick up on the tightened muscles and the accelerated heartbeat and the angst. And now I'm making you angsty about being angsty, right? I don't know. I'm gonna make it worse.
Yeah. No, those thoughts of you're not planting any seeds.
Just watering them well, right? Just fertilizing the crap out of them. I want you to aim less towards getting every germ out of your kid's life. And I want you to aim more towards being as peaceful as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And that means I'm going to head directly into it. The gold standard for these type of things, the nerd words, is exposure therapy. I'm going to gently expose somebody to something until their body stops reacting to it. And we think we think it's in our head. Like I'm thinking, like I just want to quit having these thoughts, dude. It's your body launching into fight or flight, as though someone was giving your kid like arsenic or something. Right? That's how your body responds.
People, like logically, I know there's not lead all over my house, but my body's on fire.
That's right. And here's the thing: as soon as you move from lead, you let lead go, your body will move to something else.
Right. Well, that's how it was during pregnancy. I was scared of like toxoplasmosis and all those terrible things they say will hurt your baby while they're in the womb. He's born now, and I'm like, oh, I can eat whatever I want, but now there's other things.
That's exactly right. I also, by the way, am not opposed to a low-dose SSRI to help rebalance the alarm system so that I can do the work. Sometimes the alarms get so loud, it's tough. Those type of things won't fix the alarm, but it will turn the volume down on it so that I can walk into the anxiety sometimes. Okay? That's something to talk about with your doctor. Don't go into your doctor and say, hey, this dude on podcast said I should be, don't do that. You can say, hey, I'm really, my alarm systems are loud and I know they're not functioning right because I know there's no fire in the kitchen here, but they keep going off. I want to look at some ways to rebalance the alarms. My guess is you've been struggling with this for a long, long, long time. And what your body's in desperate need of, and quite frankly, you deserve, is 18 months of focused, I'm going to clear the anxiety from my body. I'm going to intentionally build a non-anxious life through relationships, through connection, through exercise, through taking care of my thoughts, to journaling, to going into the most anxious situations, to having conversations. Do you have a huge family?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You mentioned that. You have 1,000 nieces and nephews, right? How many brothers and sisters do you have?
5 brothers and 1 sister.
Where are you in the hierarchy?
I'm number 7, and I'm significantly younger than the 6.
Okay.
So they were all born within 10 years of each other, and I was born 7 years after the youngest.
Okay. So you can have very loving, wonderful, engaged parents, but you had a very different childhood than your brothers and sisters, right?
Yeah, I was raised with 40-year-old parents, and they were raised with 20-year-old parents.
Yeah.
Different people.
Very different people. So you are going to have to learn a new way to operate in the world. And I want to do a couple of things for you. Number one, I want to tell you this directly. Like I'm looking straight into the camera right now. I haven't been postpartum, okay, but I have the feelings you're describing. I've felt them. I've lived it, and it's been tough. It's doubled me over, okay.
Yeah.
And I also want you to know that putting the work in is worth it, because on the back end, I literally don't have it at all anymore. It's gone. It's literally gone. And I feel like my body has completely rebalanced itself. Okay. So I'm telling you that because there's a light at the end of the tunnel if you want to do it, but it is going to be an overhaul. I had to change the way I do my life. Okay. Do you have somebody that you can tell what's going on in your head to, honestly?
Oh, yeah.
You do?
Yeah, I do. When I say it, I talk, I guess, how do I describe it? I say things very matter-of-factly, and so I've only ever like actually broken down and cried once to somebody.
Why is there a gap?
I think because I don't want people to like actually think that I think that he's going to get hurt or lead poisoning or whatever.
That's not it. That's not
like,
it. That's
I
not
want
it.
them to know. Okay.
It's not it. Somewhere along the way, you were told that what you feel and your needs are not important. Other people's needs were more important.
Yeah.
And you've been a peacekeeper. Is that true?
In some ways, I guess.
At some point, your body will figure out a way to let the fears and concerns out. And they will come out in weird, crazy ways if they're compressed. Like lead poisoning. Mine was, I thought they were going to nationalize housing. I thought the housing market would implode again, and then the government's going to have to come in and nationalize housing, and I was going to have to pay. Like, dude, I had the math charts that I drew. I mean, it was madness. And no amount of wisdom could talk me out of it. And then I realized,
when I was reading your book and you were talking about the cracks, I'm like, that's how I feel.
Yes, and yes, and yes. Usually when somebody's struggling with OCD and anxiety, like you're describing, again, it could be very much hormonal, but you've been dealing with this for a long time. It's often a highly isolated person surrounded by people who love them.
Yeah.
I am a lighthouse surrounded by suns, and nobody can see me or hear me because that's my job in this community, in this environment, in this family system. And so I yell inside. And eventually that yelling comes out in wacko ways. And then there's an industry that tells me how to solve the wacko ways, but it never gets to the core point. And if you are responsible for keeping mom from going off, or for bothering dad, or if you are always trying to, your brother and your sister, or sometimes the youngest kid in your family system, mom and dad are tired, and it's like, she's just a kid, and you kind of get left to your own devices, and it's cool, and it's also, whoa, probably not super cool, or you make different decisions, or you find yourself in different situations, or you marry somebody who is so great, but my job is to make sure he's okay. You see what I'm saying? And it just settles in. And often that control as a kid is really like a simple statement. Do you see me and do you still love me? And I can figure out ways that you can see me. I'll be seen. Right?
Right.
Your daughter's or your son's lucky to have you.
Thank you.
I talk with a lot of folks who don't give two craps about their kids. And your son's really, really lucky to have you as his mom.
Thanks.
You don't believe that, but I don't lie on the show. Okay? You think you got a second-rate, broke-down mom who's anxious all the time, and you're not. Okay?
Yeah.
Cool?
Yeah.
You've got which books do you have?
Both.
Both? Okay. I'm going to send you something else that's going to sound sideways. I'm going to send you the Questions for Humans couples editions, both of them. I'm
Okay.
also going to send you the friends ones. And here's why. I want you still married?
Yeah. Yes.
Good guy?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Um, I want you to have some intentional once a week, take these cards out and ask 4 or 5 questions. My guess is you've never fully connected with somebody. There's a disconnect between your feelings and the words that come out of your mouth. And that's anxiety.
hmm
Do you ever feel like if you start crying, you'll just never be able to stop?
Um, sometimes I guess I cry a lot, so it's not something that I like really prevent myself from doing.
But you don't do it with other people?
No.
Yeah.
Well, it depends. Certain people,
Okay.
but
All right. Are you meeting with a counselor?
yes.
Okay. Good. Is it not helping?
I've been bouncing between counselors.
Why?
Well, I was seeing one that I really loved, and she did EFT,
Mm-hmm.
and she had a somewhat inconsistent schedule.
Okay.
Like I couldn't see her once a week, and you just had to get on at the beginning of the month and schedule all the appointments that you needed, and sometimes there was only one available.
Yeah,
Or
that's not good. Yeah, that's not great.
yeah. So then you had to play the insurance dance of who's in network, and
Mhm.
anyway, so I'm seeing somebody.
Not great. If
And
you've been
it-
3 or 4 times and it's not good, go to somebody else.
it's talk therapy,
Okay.
and I just feel like I want something more.
Yeah. Okay. Did you get the behavioral things? I'll talk to him real quick one more time. I want you to lean into when you feel the discomfort, your first thought should not be, is this OCD or anxiety or my mother's intuition? Your
Mhm.
first thought should be a smile on your face, even when it's annoying. My body's trying to take care of me. What's my body trying to protect me
Mhm.
from? Oh, my body's trying to protect me from killing my kid. Awesome. Thank you for that. Not going to do that today. I
Yeah.
washed my hands and I'm going to feed the baby, and everything, my skin is crawling. Go wash them again, go wash them again, go wash them again. Thank you. Writing down, I'm going to keep a little journal next to me. I'm going to write down, wash my hands once before I fed my kid. My body wants me to do it again, and I'm going to wait 9 minutes. I'm going to wait 8 minutes. I'm going to set a watch. And then I'm going to practice being uncomfortable. I'm going to lean directly into this thing. And then after I feed my kid, I'm going to watch real close for signs of lead poisoning, which isn't even how that works. But,
Right.
and then I'll exhale. And then if I got to go wash my hands after 9 minutes, 10 minutes after the alarm rings, cool, I'll go do that. And I'm going to move it to 11 minutes. I'm going to move it to 15 minutes. And when I'm driving and I start to feel myself grab the wheel, I'm going to let it go. And when I start to say something to my husband that I need, and I stop myself from it because I don't want to cause a problem, I don't want to be that guy. I want to be this kind of way. No, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. Okay, you see what I'm doing? We're practicing discomfort. We're leaning into this stuff. Okay?
Yeah.
And my promise to you is if you will take this walk and, by the way, get some sleep, and, by the way, make sure you're taking care of yourself with exercise, make sure you're taking care of yourself with eating, make sure you got a group of women that you do life with. Y'all hang out once a week, even if you have to get a babysitter that you can't afford, figure it out. Get with your husband, have him keep your kid, get with a neighbor, whatever that looks like. The anxiety alarms will begin to, because your body will realize, oh, she's driving. She's in control of this thing for the first time in our life. Awesome. That's great. It's good. It's good. Whew. Thank you so much for the call, Emily. You're not broken. You're a good mom. And your little boy's lucky to have you. Let's solve for freedom, which means let's solve for peace.